Sanctum Showdown just released, and these are the best decks as of the first day. Now, keep in mind that these are very heavily likely to change over the next couple of days as the meta continues to develop and evolve, but these are the best ones as of day one. And that's not to say that whatever brew you have or any other brew can't do well. These are just kind of the patterns of decks that have continued to rise to the top. First up, we have Surtur. There are a couple of versions. I'm going to put two on the screen. There are other variations, and they all do about the same. They're all kind of the same to the core. And the reason that they do well is because they just put out raw stats. We're not seeing a lot of tech cards so far in Sanctum Showdown, and so it's not as risky to throw these big, heavy hitters. And then if so, we have things to protect them like Cosmo and Armor. Cosmo is especially good in Sanctum Showdown because we're seeing a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy. And so this deck performs or excels because it can just raw outstat the opponent. And eventually you're going to be winning in 2 of the 3 lanes or so. And then when Sanctum shifts, you're guaranteed to get good points most of the turns. And then next, one of the ones that I see the most commonly is Scream style of decks. There are a few different variations. You can kind of go more heavily into the movement aspects or go a little bit lower in your curve, but either way, super phenomenal. They excel at being able to disposition your opponent's cards, which, as we know, is super, super valuable in the new game mode. Being able to pull them out of the high value locations and into a lower one can be super critical, or you pull them into a lane, cap them out where it's a little bit lower than what they would have liked in that lane, and then you can just come over the top of it, and then you're getting free points every single turn. And then next we have Zoo style of decks. Zoo style of decks are able to excel because they put power in every single lane. They are very tempo heavy. They're getting power. They can scale it later with things like Khazar, Blue Marvel. They can go incredibly tall in one lane. So one key pivotal lane, whenever you are around turn 5, you can drop a big Gilgamesh, and it is very hard for the opponent to keep up with that much power, since we are already putting little chip power into that lane turn after turn. There's a couple of different variations. They're all going to use Mockingbird, Gilgamesh, Blue Marvel, your kind of core. And then after that, the makeup of it kind of shifts around. But the core, just tempo, power, is going to get you through, and it's going to do pretty well, especially since we're seeing a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy. You can play those cards into lanes that aren't the Guardian lane or aren't the Sanctum lane and still push power there, whether it be a Shanna, whether it be a Blue Marvel. You can get power into that lane even if you're not playing directly into that lane. And then we have a couple of variations of tempo terrors or priority monsters, just looking to get power down consistently every single turn, and then either misdirected or just be able to counter your opponent with things like Negasonic, so that if they're playing one card in a lane, you're going to destroy it and you gain that lane. You can take out some very key priority targets. I will say that decks that utilize Negasonic, if you at any point lose priority, it can be so difficult to get it back. These do exceptionally well just because overall all of the cards in the deck are very, very efficient, very effective, very powerful. So things like Gladiator, Cole Obsidian, we have Doctor Strange to be able to reposition cards. We have, or in the other version, we have Shanna to be able to kind of do a little bit of tempo zoo. We have a Stegron to disposition your opponent's cards. We have Makari to get that just cheesy, early, easy power onto the board. And of course, you can adjust these depending on what cards you have, but both are going to do very well at grabbing priority early and then just trying to hold on to it throughout the entirety of the game. And then next is one that I didn't actually see during my climb, but I have been playing it and absolutely loving it. It is a move heavy deck. Movement decks do well at being able to reposition and misdirect your opponent and just push big power into lanes that you actually want to. And it doesn't necessarily lock that power into place. And Sanctum Showdown, it has been shown that being flexible and having that power that can maneuver into those high priority, high value lanes when it counts can be so pivotal at just locking down your opponent. And Move Deck does that incredibly well. This one is going to be using Madam Web, our dagger. We use Vulture, Human Torch. We have Cole Obsidian, the very frustrating cannonball, and it just performs so incredibly well. If you realize that the opponent is running a Guardians of the Galaxy, just don't play into the lane that is the Sanctum lane and shift the power over, and you're going to be doing just absolutely fine. You're going to lock them out very easily. Absolutely loving this deck so far. And then two decks that honestly came out of nowhere and surprised me, but have been performing insanely well. It's lower sample sizes than the more established archetypes that have multiple variations. But Werewolf by Midnight is showing some very big promise. This is more of a Guardians of the Galaxy werewolf deck, but similar to Move, this deck can operate very well and very efficiently by moving that power into high priority key lanes whenever you need to swing them in your favor by playing an on reveal over there. And then your werewolf jumps over there, you gain power, and he's primed and ready to jump to the next priority lane the next turn, and it can be so difficult to deal with. And then the final one that I have is kind of a surprising deck to me, but it's a Silver Surfer deck. I saw a few versions, but this Silver Surfer deck was the most interesting. It runs Jean Grey, being able to lock the opponent into inopportune lanes to play in, and then you can just play out your power elsewhere. You have kind of go wide power potential in like your Mr. Fantastic, you have your Groot, you have your Fastos, your Jean Grey, and you can buff it up later with a Silver Surfer to kind of give you that surprise, just little push in lanes where the opponent may not be expecting it. And then we have our low ball stuff of like Ant-Man, Rocket, Star-Lord, Medusa, Hydra Bob. All of those are fantastic for your early game priority grab. And then your late game is looking more into like Jean Grey, Gamora, and just kind of navigating the end game and making it difficult for the opponent to play where they want to play. I'm absolutely loving the game mode. I hope that you're enjoying it as much as I am. Make sure to be checking me out on twitch.tv/TLSGsnap, where there are Sanctum Showdown Twitch drops to be able to get additional scrolls and charms to help out your progress and get you closer to earning those new cards. This has been TLSG. Later, guys.